Okay. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to be here. I hope you're all having an incredible weekend. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to Thailand, but luckily I was still invited to come and present. And today I'm going to tell you about Superfluid. Superfluid is my company. We started about 3 years ago. We've been live on different blockchains for about 2 years now. And what we do is we have these tokens called super tokens, which you can stream. And I'm going to explain what that means, how it works, and how you can use it during the course of this presentation. And yeah, hopefully this is quite clear, but if it's not, in any case, I will be hosting a mentorship session on Wednesday, and I'd be super happy to help anyone out. But yeah, here goes. So what we do at Superfluid is we try to make money go faster. We want to make money that goes at the speed of the internet, that can work with fewer transactions and be extremely scalable. And we've reinvented money. We've created this new extension to ERC20 tokens that can do more than we ever imagined. We call this main functionality money streaming. And money streaming is basically a way of making continuous payments. I send a transaction and money starts flowing like water from 1 second to another. My account will go down, your account will go up. And by doing this, you can basically pay for services by the second, and you can have on-chain provable income. This can be extremely useful by reducing the risk of any payments you make. So imagine you're working for your boss, and then at the end of the month, they don't pay you. At that point, you've taken on 30 days of risk, and that risk has proven to be a bad payer. Now, if you were paid every second, there would be no risk. If your employer stopped paying you, you would stop working. And as a result, there is no counterparty risk anymore. And this is true for employment, but it's also true for all sorts of other services. And this is what it looks like. Effectively, all of your streams come from one account, and that account moves in real time. So imagine, for example, as a business, you can have all your subscriptions coming in, all of your expenses going out, and all of this shows in real time in your account. As a user, as an individual, maybe you have your salary coming in, and you have your rent or your subscriptions going out on the other side. And at any point in time, you know exactly how much money you have in your account. And that is extremely valuable. And obviously, because Superfluid is a programmable protocol, you can also build contracts that use these functionalities. And this is something we're going to touch a bit later. So how does this work? Well, the main core innovation of Superfluid is what we call super tokens. These are this extension to ERC20, which has real-time balances. So your balance is basically calculated every block. The second innovation is what we call agreements. So agreements are effectively payment rails that are built into the token. So this allows for our tokens to move in a much more fluid, much more dynamic way, and to really leverage the blockchain and the possibility of real-time balances. And then the most popular agreement we have is called money streaming. And money streaming is basically, again, a way of sending money over time, which is extremely scalable because you only pay gas once. Once you pay gas, after that, your money will flow on-chain with you don't need to do anything, no transactions, nothing. Money just flows without any cost. So what is an agreement? So an agreement is basically a very, very short, very succinct definition of a recurring payment. And this allows us to basically describe that entire recurring payment in one single transaction. And we do this by storing as little data as possible, and then using that data to calculate the balance every second. So for example, to send a stream, right, we call this a constant flow agreement. All the information that is necessary is an amount and a recipient. So I want to send $100 a month to Alice. This is all the information that is needed to describe the streams, and this is all the information that we put on chain. We also have a separate agreement called the instant distribution agreement, and this allows us to send $100 to an existing set of users, right? Here you need two things. You need the set of users and the amount. To define the set of users, you need to make a few transactions, but then sending money to the set is effectively almost free. You only have to make one transfer, and it sends money to potentially 1 million users at the same time. And all of this is possible because of how super tokens are built. So again, these are your two functionalities. And the key thing is that rather than requiring multiple transactions, right? If you think of it from a normal point of view, if you want to stream money, you have to send a transaction every second. But with Superfluid, what you do is you send a single transaction which contains all the information for that agreement, all the information for that movement of money. And by settling that entire thing, we then have no more recurring transactions. So what this looks like under the hood is basically a smart contract which stores a lot of information and then calculates the balance every second. So as time goes by, your balance is calculated, but effectively the money is moving for free, right? And this enables us to effectively settle every single balance, every single block for free. So with Superfluid at the moment, I think there's about 80,000 active streams, and every block, all their balances change, and there is no gas cost. And that is possible because effectively the balance is calculated instead of being updated manually. So what can you do with Superfluid? So a bit of a mental map. So think of a normal ERC20. There's only one way to move money. That's called an ERC20 transfer, which sends money from one user to one recipient instantaneously, right? So I send Bob $10 now. That's the only thing you can do with an ERC20. Now, with a super token, you can do a bit more, right? You have two new dimensions to the token. So the continuous dimension, which allows us to say, I want to stream money to Bob, right? So it's still one-to-one, but the movement of the funds is continuous over time. And then we have one-to-many payments. So using Superfluid, you can send funds to a lot of recipients at the same time. So you can say, I want to send funds to everyone in the audience right now. And that's one transaction to send funds to everyone. Now, what's coming next for Superfluid is what we call the constant flow distribution agreement. And this is basically something that will be available later this year. Unfortunately, it's not ready yet. It's coming to testnets at the end of this month. And this will allow you to stream money to a set of users. And the way this is different to the constant flow agreement is that in the constant flow agreement, it's a one-to-one stream. And if I'm streaming from my account to everyone in the audience, right, I have 50 streams open, and I want to change those flow rates, I have to go one by one. So I have to make 50 update transactions. Using the constant flow distribution agreements, I'll be able to make one transaction, which updates all of those outgoing streams, following a set of proportions I defined previously. And this will allow you to have smart contracts which effectively stream to 1 million users in a very efficient way, and you'll be able to update that amount in a very efficient way as well. So this is a very exciting change that's coming soon to Superfluid. Now, going back to one of the really cool things with Superfluid is that you can actually stream money as you receive it, right? So, for example, I'm receiving part of my salary using Superfluid, and I'm actually streaming it along into a marketplace to buy Ether. And this is something that in our minds, the way we imagine the future is that we'll basically create this network of all these streams, right? With money flowing in and flowing out, and everybody effectively paying for everything every second, right? And we can imagine this network becoming more and more complex, and we call these networked cash flows. And I can show you already what this is starting to develop into. This is a slightly old actually view of what our network looked like on the USDC. So this was just a few months after we launched, so about 1.5 years ago, and you can already see these interconnected streams of USDC settling continuously, right? And if we go literally just a few months later, that network started to become even more complex and interconnected, right? With more and more economic activity happening, more users streaming money to each other, more funds moving every second on chain. And this gets us extremely excited about the future that we can build, and extremely excited about the future that our developers in our ecosystem can build, because you can effectively help us create this future where all of our economic activity is settled on the blockchain every second and without gas. So what's it like building on Superfluid? Well, there's a few tools that we've built that can help you develop quicker. So we have a very good TypeScript SDK that has subgraph hooks built in. So if you're building in React, you'll find the whole experience extremely familiar, and it will help you get started real quick. We have some very good Solidity libraries which abstract away the interactions with Superfluid significantly, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And we have some great examples that you can start and fork immediately and get started real quick building your applications. So get started. Don't worry about it. If you've developed in the blockchain before, you will find that building with streams is actually just as easy as building with normal tokens. And I'll show you what the APIs look like in a second, but it's very, very easy. So the first concept is, again, going back to the beginning, we have super tokens, right? So there's two kinds of super tokens, but the important thing is that they're always ERC20 tokens. So they are compatible with everything that you know in Web3. They're not different in any meaningful way, right? So everything you want to do, you can do. On top of that, you have Superfluid functionalities. And there's two kinds of tokens. So there's pure tokens and wrappers. Pure tokens, you can imagine, these are tokens issued through Superfluid. So if you need to issue a token for the application you're building, you can issue it directly through Superfluid, and it will always be streamable. Very, very easy, very good user experience. On the flip side, if you want to use a token that already exists, then for example, USDC or Ether, then you will need to wrap it. And by wrapping it, you can make it a super token, and then it can be streamed. And this is how most of our volume is at the moment. USDC is our biggest token, and obviously everybody's using the wrapper called USDC X. So think of a normal ERC20, right? You're probably familiar with this interface. All you need to do is define a recipient, an amount defined in way, and that's it, right? This will move funds, and you can interact with this in JavaScript, in Solidity, whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. Now, interacting with a stream is very similar. It's effectively almost the same API, but the amount is a rate, right? You have to think of money instead of in quantities, right? Now the money is moving in rates. It's a bandwidth. It's an amount per second. And once you start this transaction, once you confirm this, money will start flowing, and effectively it won't stop until you call the delete flow function. So you can think of also your getters, right? So if you want to get the flow state, you simply ask for the sender and the recipient, and you will get the flow rate and the start date. And for example, imagine you want to calculate how much has a user sent you so far. Well, you do token get flow, you get the flow rate, the start date, and then you calculate the difference between the current timestamp, the start date, and multiply it by the flow rate. And suddenly you can calculate exactly how much money the sender has sent the recipients until now. So it's very, very convenient, and effectively this is pretty much all you need to know. So going back to flow, remember that your amount is in way per second. So it's going to look something like that, and it does equate to something like $1,000 a month. Now, a very important concept in Superfluid are super apps. Super apps are applications that are optimized to work with Superfluid. They can effectively react to incoming streams. And what this means is that you can effectively expect your application to always be aware of any money it receives and to be able to act accordingly. So you can build, for example, an application that receives a stream and breaks that stream into two streams and sends those two streams maybe part to you and part to someone else. So any sort of interaction that you would like your application to have when it receives money, you can code using super apps. You have a few different codes, a few different hooks, right? So you have the on transfer, on create, on update, and on delete. So on transfer works when you receive a transfer of tokens. Create, update, and delete work when you receive a stream. A stream is updated or a stream is deleted. This allows you to have a very predictable interface because effectively you can, in your front end, you can simply stream money to the contract, right? So your front end doesn't need to call any special functions. It can simply open a stream to the contract, and then you will know that the contract will always execute the functionality you've built into the onCreate hook. So it's very easy to build with this because the interface is very predictable, and as a result, the integration is very simple. You don't even need necessarily a front end. You could build your entire smart contract, never build a front end, and then simply ask users to open streams from our dashboard, for example. Now, if you start building with Superfluid, something that will be extremely useful is the Superfluid Developer Console. This allows you to explore all the data, you can find all the users, you can access the subgraph directly, and effectively you have a control panel for everything you want to do and see on in Superfluid. So it's a very, very convenient place to get started. Now, let's see a couple of applications that have been built with Superfluid. So one of my favorites that I actually use every day is called Ricochet. So Ricochet is an exchange. It allows you to dollar cost average into any token. So for example, in my case, I receive my salary in USDC, and I'm actually streaming that to purchase Ether and Bitcoin every second. The way this works, effectively, the market, Ricochet receives streams, it accumulates a bit of funds, and then when it reaches a certain threshold, it takes those funds, it goes to Uniswap, it swaps them for the asset that is needed, and then it uses the distribution agreement to send the money back to everyone who is streaming. So it's extremely scalable. It could potentially handle millions of users streaming to the contract. And what it does is it basically keeps buying on the market and giving back the assets to users. So again, very, very cool project. I've been using this for a while now. Since I set it up, I don't think I've ever needed to touch it, except for when they upgraded their contracts. And you can check it out. It works very well. They've just deployed on Optimism as well. Another app that's not quite live yet, but is coming live soon, is built by Huma Finance. Huma Finance is an on-chain income-backed lending protocol. So they want to give you loans based on your income. And Superfluid is obviously a great integration for them because it's on-chain income, right? I'm receiving salary in a stream from my employer, and that is on-chain. It's provable. They can just take that, turn it into an NFT, send it to their DeFi protocol, and I can get cash upfront. I'm really excited for this. It's not quite live yet. It should be live in the next month or two. And this will allow me to borrow against my salary. So this is as close as to an on-chain mortgage as it gets. And it was built on Superfluid. It's very easy for you guys to build something similar. The hard part here is underwriting the risk, not so much the smart contracts. But if you're interested in building the smart contracts, we actually have an example in our repository for how to build this yourselves. Now, a very, very cool application that was built with Superfluid is PlanetIX. So PlanetIX is the biggest game on Polygon, and they've been doing an amazing job attracting users. And when they launched with us, in a few days, they had over 25,000 users that were using the integration built. Now, what it does is they have their in-game token. It's a strategy game. You take the token, you wrap it into a wrapper super token, and then you can stream it to a rental contract in the game. And by doing this, you basically access special features of the game. So you can think of it as a subscription. Technically in the game, you're renting land. But what's exciting is that, again, because of how predictable the interface is, all they're doing in the front end is using our SDK to open stream, while their backend is a custom super app, which activates or deactivates parts of the game based on whether a user is streaming or not. And this is something, again, we have very good examples for, so you could quickly set up your own. Now, the last application I'm going to talk about, which I think is probably one of the coolest things in DeFi, this is not live yet because it requires the constant flow distribution agreement, which I mentioned earlier, which also isn't quite ready yet. But this will be probably the most efficient AMM in crypto the moment it launches. So the way it works is basically it's a streaming exchange. You stream money in, money streams out, and as a result, the market has no locked capital whatsoever. All the money is streaming at every point. It never gets stuck in the contract. And as a result, it has such high capital efficiency that it's very hard to even compare it to existing markets because there's no money in this exchange. If you look at something like Uniswap, it locks millions of dollars of capital, right? So this is significantly more efficient. So this will probably be live, I expect, by the end of this year. I'm very excited for it. You can test it out if you go to aqueduct.fi, and they have a really cool simulated environment, so you can check out what that would look like. And obviously, if you want to look into how it's built, they've released a white paper, which is very, very, very detailed as well. So yeah, these are some of the apps that have been built on Superfluid. As you can see, they're very diverse. We have games, we have very serious financial applications, we have marketplaces, but really the sky's the limit. One of the applications that I didn't mention here is called DJ Dogs, and it's basically an NFT that pays you to own it. So you buy it and you receive a stream of Ether, which was a really fun use case when Ether was going up. And it was built in a few days by a guy at a hackathon, and then he just launched it, and it's been running ever since. So, there's a lot of different use cases that you can use Superfluid for. Ultimately, I'd like you to think of streams as effectively just another function of your tokens, right? As I showed earlier, you can simply consider these just like another function of your ERC20, right? It really is just another way of moving funds that allows you to create novel experiences. Now, the last thing I'll mention is subscriptions. So subscriptions are one of the biggest opportunities in crypto, in my experience, because right now, if you think about it, we're building this completely decentralized online economy, and we don't have a convenient way to send money subscriptions, right? To charge for our services. Using Superfluid, it actually is really easy because the user only needs to make one transaction to subscribe, and then the flow will keep going forever. They never need to touch it, and the merchant can get paid every second. But what is really exciting about this is actually what comes next, right? Now, sending money from one user to another, it's very easy. In JavaScript, it's just one call, and the money stream can start. But what's exciting is what you can do as a developer behind the scenes, right? Because there's no reason that the user has to stream to an EOA, right? They could stream to a contract. In fact, they could stream to a super app. And that super app could react. It could have custom functionalities. It could maybe mint an NFT to the recipients while they're streaming. It could itself be transferable so that you can sell your business on chain. Maybe it's a revenue splitter, right? So maybe it sends parts of the revenue to charity, or it sends them to a marketplace, right? It's completely up to you. Or maybe it supports lending, right? So as I was showing before with Huma, there's this opportunity to take these cash flows and turn them into borrowable and lendable assets. So the sky's the limit. There's a lot of opportunities, and I'd really love to see you all hacking with us during this hackathon. But in any case, follow us. Go to Superfluid HQ. That's also my personal Twitter. And in any case, I'd love to see you all in our Discord as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Fran. All right. So now we are open for questions. All right.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. I really wonder how can you buy an NFT that will give you a perpetuity of ETH? How is the
That's
magic
really cool.
functioning? I would love to have it
It's
actually.
not I have one actually. So there's two tricks. The first is that he doesn't actually give you that much ETH, so it's really small. And basically, the way it works is that when you buy the NFT, you're putting in ETH, and then he invests it in DeFi, and they send you back a part of that over time. And I think I wouldn't consider it a perpetuity because I think the expected time to stop would be about 2 years. Like at some point, the money just stops, right? Because the invested amount is not high. But I think there is something there, and I think you could probably build a DeFi protocol that has a longer lifespan with the right financial engineering. I think there's something there.
All right. Anyone else? All right. So, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fran. Thank you so much about the knowledge about the product that you have been building with your team. And I think if anyone want to use any subscription, any stream, you can get in touch with Superfluid or with Fran himself. So thank you very much for today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting. Have a great day.